Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for coming in for this sutta study program with Dhammadharini. We are especially delighted to have Ayya Brahmavara with us, whom you can see on the screen. She has been a friend and a teacher with Dhammadharini from time to time over the years, and has agreed to join us a few more times coming up to share and give her perspective on these wonderful teachings. The sutta that I have chosen for this time is called the Samvara Sutta. It's in the numerical discourses of 4.16. This is a little bit of a longer, I should say 4.14 in the numerical discourses. This is a longer explanation of the four right efforts. The four right efforts are part of the Noble Eightfold Path, wherein they are called samavayama. Vayama is effort. Elsewhere, when these four are shown by themselves, they're frequently referred to as padhana. It has the same meaning as effort. I could mention to you that this kind of effort is something that is an intentional choice that one can make about how to use the mind. In the Abhidhamma, they're called a cetasika. And then there's a very similar word that has a little bit different meaning. That word is called virya, or energy. So energy is more a result of conditions rather than an intentional choice that we make. But a person who develops stream entry will be blessed with a tremendous increase in the available energy that they can bring to the practice. That's one of the great results of stream entry. I think what I would like to do is, before coming to the sutta that I already named, is to review the short explanation of the four right efforts. In the if somebody's reading it in Bhikkhu Bodhispokar in a printed version, this is given in Sutta 4.69. So this is today's sutta, and this is the other sutta. You can see the one that's called 4.69, right effort. Mendicants, there are these four efforts. What for? Effort to restrain, that's the samvara, padhana, okay? Padana is the effort, Samvara is restraining. The effort to give up, that's called Pahana, is giving up. So Padana is the effort to give up. To develop, and the Pali word for develop is Bhavana. My original training was at the Bhavana Society in West Virginia, so Bhavana refers to the mental cultivation. And then the last one is to preserve or to protect, which is called Anurakkhana. So the Anurakkhana, to protect, Padana, the effort to protect. What mendicants is the effort to restrain? It's when you generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities don't arise. This is called the effort to restrain. And what mendicants is the effort to give up? It's when you generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities which are already arisen, it's upanana papakana, they already arisen, the unskillful qualities are given up. And then the first one are the ones that have not yet arisen. So when the bad quality has not yet arisen, you prevent it. After it has arisen, you give it up. And what mendicants is the effort to develop? When you generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that unarisen, skillful qualities do arise. And then the effort to develop, that's the effort to develop. And the effort to preserve, it's when you generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have arisen remain, are not lost, but increase, mature, and are fulfilled by development. This is called the effort to preserve. And then there's a verse, restraint and giving up, development and preservation. These are the four efforts taught by the kinsman of the sun. Any mendicant who keenly applies these may attain an ending of suffering. Dear friends, we who have been practicing for a long time in monastic life, we may recite this short formula possibly every single day, or very frequent time, hundreds of times, thousands of times. We've recited this formula and thought about it so that it becomes almost second nature. The definition that's given in the commentary, what's the meaning of a skillful quality or an unskillful quality? So that would be any mental factor. If it's affected by greed, hatred, and delusion, it's called not skillful. If it's free from greed, hatred, and delusion, then it's skillful. I might invite our Brahmavara. You've recited this how many hundreds and thousands of times? And how do you use this in your practice, this formula? You're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Ayya. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yes, it is such a helpful formula, like a matrix into which we can put our experience and immediately have the sense of what is to be supported, what is to be encouraged, what is to be put aside. And so it's a really wonderful framework, for meeting experience. And so in so many ways, the Buddha gave us directions, right? And this is such a good way of also channeling our energy, and also an encouragement to bring up effort or energy to apply to our practice. And I think this is a really important aspect for us, because we don't want to get complacent at any point, really, so to remember that right effort is part of the Eightfold Path, and to bring it in, rouse up energy. Don't recline just because we might be feeling great today, having a nice day, all's well. Don't forget that there's a path and there's an encouragement to find ways to develop, find ways to let go, find ways to protect and maintain the good that we're witnessing here. Find ways to not have any give any opportunity for unarisen, unskillful states to have a chance to get a look in. Be alert, be attentive, be vigilant. So these are just some reflections on this particular paradigm. Very helpful paradigm for us.
One thing that's so lovable about the teachings of the Buddha is that the how-to is in a way which is so simple and practical that even if one feels that we don't have profound wisdom or insight, or don't even have the superhuman realization, nevertheless we can follow these simple instructions, and even the simplicity is a kind of a release of energy. I have many things to do on my to-do list, and some of them are difficult in the sense that I don't quite know how to do them. And then other ones are simple. So one of my projects, I'm doing a bit of translation work, and it's such the easiest thing. Whenever I have 5 minutes, I can just open that text, take the next word, look up the word, put in the answer, look up the next word, put in the answer. It's rather mechanical, and it's enjoyable because of the very simplicity, combined with the fact that this is an innocent and harmless activity that's not hurting anybody, and which is beneficial for me and beneficial for others in the future. But then if somebody says, please cause more people in Sonoma County to visit the monastery, I don't know how to. I don't know how to do that. So that's difficult. I have 5 minutes. I can't use the 5 minutes to bring that about. So it is having things broken down in steps like that is a very encouraging and easy way that we can make the practice work for us all day long. This is both a practice that's related to meditation and a practice which is related to our everyday life in all the postures. So, for example, well, actually, it's going to come out in the next sutta in more depth, but you can see that preventing an unwholesome state from arising. If we're thinking about meditation, naturally we think of the hindrances or the 5 nivaranas of sensual desire, aversion, restlessness and worry, sloth and torpor, and skeptical doubt as being the kinds of dangers that might interfere with our success in doing a formal meditation. And so then one can take steps to prevent those hindrances from arising while we are on the cushion. So if you have a calm life all day long, it's much more likely that when it comes time to sit at the cushion for formal meditation, that the mind will be relatively calm. But if you have a mind which is full of distress and anger all day long, then it's much more likely that those will come up during the meditation. If you all day long, if you know that a certain situation has the potential to trigger an unhealthy state of mind, let's say you have to go to a meeting with your boss and your boss is going to yell at you because of something, and then you think that you might be upset, then you can think about it beforehand and prepare yourself. So you're going to think of being equanimous and kind in your state of mind when you go into that meeting. So you're prepared ahead of time to stay cool in a stressful situation. And so then just the same thing, if you're coming to meditation and if you're feeling a bit dull and drowsy, for example, as the meditation minute comes up, you may think about energy. Just thinking about energy causes energy. And so making a determination, just deciding to be energetic, can help to forestall that sleepiness to come up and interfere with the meditation. So at our community, we use this in thinking about many different things, the whole quality of our community life. We think, what were things that would be good that we didn't do, that we should do? Or what are things that we've potential dangers that we avoided, so forth like that. So now I'm going to come to the main sutta that we have for today, which is called the Samvara Sutta, but elsewhere I've seen it called the Chatupadana Sutta. I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Mendicants, there are these 4 efforts. What for? The effort to restrain, to give up, to develop, and to preserve. Okay. What mendicants is the effort to restrain? When a mendicant sees a sight with their eyes, they don't get caught up in the features and details. If the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of covetousness and displeasure would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. Likewise, for hearing a sound with the ears, smelling an odor with the nose, tasting a flavor with the tongue, feeling a touch with the body, and knowing an idea with the mind. They don't get caught up in the features and details. If the faculty of mind were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of covetousness and displeasure would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of mind and achieving its restraint. This is called the effort to restrain. So much to say. In this case, the sutta is not just pointing in a very generalized way to unwholesome states of mind, but instead directing awareness to the very moment when unwholesome states of mind can be triggered and when could arise. It's said that there are these 6 sense bases and the corresponding external objects, visual things for the eyes and so forth. Concepts are considered as the external object for the mind. And then there is the what's called adverting consciousness, which is are the directing awareness that the mind, the conscious mind is available to know what's arising right there, and it's something called a triple conjunction, which is the faculty, the external object, and the consciousness comes together in a moment, in an instant, and just at that instant is called contact, which is like flicking a light switch. And with that contact arises, the first thing that's said that to arise is the Vedana, or the feeling, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. And then with that contact and that feeling is the potential for all kinds of proliferations of other parts of mentality, different perceptions, different thoughts, different intentions can arise. And those thoughts which got triggered from that contact can become a subsequent contact. So if I associate, saying, a Buddha image with happiness, and then I happen to see a rupa. I'm trying to give a positive example, not to give it all for on the side of ill. So I see the form, and then I've got that perception, and then perhaps that uplifting feeling that's aroused then can bring up the thought of confidence or faith, or the thought of energy, and then it can become like a cascade of uplifting energy that's a combination of that initial contact plus the subsequent thoughts and perceptions that happened, right? So how do we protect the faculties? By not giving undue attention to the signs and features. Now, I'll call on Brahmavara and let you give the answer.
Thank you, Ayya. It's just a huge topic, I feel. This topic. There's so much. I mean, for me, one of the important points is having the mindfulness to notice what's happening, and when we are beginning to be overwhelmed, and I feel this word overwhelm, it's a very interesting word. It's like, when do we notice that we're getting caught up? in aversion or desire or reactivity of some sort. And the cascade, as you say, Ayya, that once you're caught up in the current, you can be swept away. And to be able to notice that potential before it actually happens. And so that for me is really the answer, I suppose, is to be first and foremost as a priority to be giving importance to mindfulness first and experience second. And I think this comes for us, doesn't it, with meditation practice, where we're learning to observe reality rather than be immersed in our experience. But it's a huge topic because I feel like people often can relate to these teachings in a way of sort of turning away from the world and just having nothing to do with, having the least possible amount to do with life. And it's not really about that, I feel. It's more like, say, for an example, if we take in news, there's so much care required to notice the effect of what we're receiving, what we're hearing, what we're seeing. And we have so much nowadays that is so very shocking, upsetting, overwhelming, and to be aware of the effect of just watching the news or hearing the news, and to not necessarily avoid all the news and not have a clue what's going on in the world, but rather to be taking great care and enabling ourselves, to take in information and then to pay more attention to the processing of that so that the overwhelm is taken care of or it doesn't arise. And so I feel there's so much there for us because most of us are engaging in the world and we are impinged upon all the time by the life that's going on around us and within us. And it's not to say all that should be put aside and we can't all go into a cave or a forest and let go of the entire relationship with the world. No, we need to know how to relate. And so there's so much guidance here and this encouragement to watch out and be so mindful of the beginning of that movement towards desire or aversion or reactivity, and to then give top priority to what's happening here. What's this response? How can I meet this? And how can I stay present for what's happening and allow? When we do this, of course, we come to a place of peacefulness again and again. And this really feels like, to me, the work of processing our experience skillfully. And then we're learning. It's like we're the Buddha seeing the Dharma. We're not turning away, we're opening, actually more and more available and open and intimately connected with life, but we're not also, we're in the world, but we're not also of the world. We are first and foremost practicing for liberation. And it's, for me, this balance is just it's a huge topic, but it's also a very important day-to-day practice for us all. Yeah.
And within the context of meditation specifically, there's a specific way of working this, which is kind of like a practicing, so that then when we're off in the world encountering so many different things, we have that practiced response. So for example, if you are sitting in meditation and now here at our monastery, just on the other side of this wall is the washer where they wash the clothing. So if somebody is doing their laundry in an interval that's supposed to be a meditation hour, so I've just heard a noise. It's not a very loud noise at all, right? But I've heard a noise and I can recognize that it's the washer and somebody has done something that they shouldn't do. And then if I got that judgment about it, I can immediately, the whole story can start and a negativity can arise, which is a tremendous danger to meditation. But if I can just let it be, just stop, just the noises, the sound is just the sound. It's only, so this is what I mean, not getting caught up in the signs and details, or even not getting caught up like that machine that makes a certain noise, like the water's running for like a few seconds and then it stops for a little bit longer interval and then it runs again for a few seconds. So without, so it's so easy for the mind, like any little thing, to get hooked into watching it, so that it's like watching television. You're watching the on and off process of the washing machine going. So we can train ourselves to not be caught there, and to just allow the vibration of the noise, the contact. It just happens, and it's dropping as soon as it happens. So it only is contact, and the further proliferation is not happening. And so once we can do that with the simple experiences, or it could be, if not something external, it could even be just because of the result of sitting still for a long time, that a certain painful sensation can come up in the body. And then that painful sensation can cause the mind to think of some kind of painful thought. And so just the same way, if we are able to be very alert to, at the level of the contact before the proliferation, we practice doing that. And when we've practiced a lot on a cushion, we've got a skill that helps us all day long, as well as a skill that helps us to be successful in meditation. I'll invite, if there are any comments or questions about that, or else we could just go ahead with the next of the 4 points. Okay. What mendicants is the effort to give up? It's when a mendicant doesn't tolerate a sensual, malicious, or cruel thought that's arisen, but gives it up, gets rid of it, eliminates it, and obliterates it. They don't tolerate any bad, unskillful qualities that have arisen, but give them up, get rid of them, eliminate them, and obliterate them. This is called the effort to give up. This is very strong language. And if you, as your life is now, or if you can remember how it used to be for you, sometimes those unskillful kind of thoughts would come in, and you wanted to give them up, but you don't know how. And you are beset and tortured with negative or toxic thoughts that you don't yet know how to give them up. And it seems almost like a bit harsh, doesn't it? That the Buddha says, don't tolerate that, get rid of it. It even goes against, in psychology, they say, like if something is strongly condemned and you're made to feel like very remorseful and guilty and ashamed if you have got certain kinds of reactions, and then you learn how to suppress it, but then you've suppressed it, you've suppressed the expression, but you haven't actually been able to be mindfully aware and to know what it is. It's like suppressed without being understood, and then those repressed things can later on cause a problem. So now Ayya Brahmavara is going to explain how we can take such a strong and harsh approach to destroying the negative thoughts without falling into that trap of suppression.
Thank you, Ayya. Yeah, I was just reflecting actually, yes, sort of comparing these two different situations. The situation where we're having a lovely day and all's well, and I'm quite peaceful really, and then I listen to the news or I hear the news from somebody, and boom, something can arise, and how we need to be very alert and aware of the arising of the unarisen states, negative states, unwholesome states. And in this case, more the sense of we are from within us, we're dealing with a mind that is in some way defiled, whether it's wanting something or hating something or confused. We're having to deal with this, and this sort of, to my understanding, this sort of vigorous teaching from the Buddha to put all your energy into stopping that process, it really speaks to me of the encouragement not to obsess around our defilements, not to dive into them and make much of them, rather to have that attitude of this is ugly, this is unbearable, this is so painful, this is overwhelming, and having that attitude, then we're stepping back and distancing ourselves to some degree from this process, this cascading process, and that gives us a handle. So it's like, rather than being swept away by the current, the encouragement here is, no, you have to stand firm. You have to find some solid ground first, and then you can witness, you can give space and time to whatever's going on. But first of all, there needs to be that strong, energetic movement towards not encouraging this, not allowing this to magnify and multiply, and not rolling around in this suffering. So to me, it's this sense of a firmness, clear determination, and an energetic no. But it's really just to start with. It's just to make that space, and then one can really allow the defilements to reveal themselves and to play out and give space for that. But we're doing that from a place of non-reactivity, peaceful space, the peaceful observer. So that's my interpretation really of this very strong language on the part of the Buddha. It's this kind of an encouragement.
In the sutta on the ways of dispelling unwholesome thoughts, it gives a sequence of methods. And one of the methods in particular is acknowledging the danger in holding on to unwholesome thoughts. There can be, I'm going to finish my thought and then call on Ananaya. There can be a way that a person could rationalize some unwholesome and unskillful thought and fool themselves into thinking that these thoughts are not doing any harm, and that it's okay to be greedy in this limited way, or to be aversive or hateful in this limited way. And then if you don't see the problem, then you won't be able to take care of it. So then seeing the danger is the way to be motivated to know that we are looking for the way to also get rid of these mental qualities. I could give one example. I used to have a friend, I have a friend, but long, long ago, she told me that she had boundless loving kindness for all beings in the whole world except for the communists, because of what the communists had done to her family. She couldn't forgive them. And she had, somehow set aside like this one corner of hatred. that was not yet able to be dropped or put down. And it could be that the wound was so deep that it may take some extra special kind of deep processing to finally be able to release and dispel that one. But if one thinks that's okay, then you won't have the motivation to look further work to let that go. So then I think the urgency there is to believe what the Buddha told us about the way to liberation, and to keep ourselves motivated. I like to call him Ananaya.
The screen, for some reason, in this past week or whatever, the small screens, where it shows everybody, the gallery is a strip across the top, and it's cut in half for some reason. I don't know if that's an upgrade somewhere or whatever. Anyway, actually, I love it when we get the Buddha just saying, you know what, this is what you have to do. Gotta whack it. You gotta, whatever, you really have to get this, that you really gotta pay attention, and you just don't give it any room. I personally really like it when there are these, they're not frequent, but every so often you get them, and it's like, yeah, look, this is really how it is. And in my own practice, currently, probably for 6 months or so, I've really dedicated to myself to catching irritation when it's, even the slightest things that are coming up about something that's potentially irritating, and giving it no quarter. Now, in the beginning, if I were like, in the early days and reading that particular suit, I probably wouldn't have maybe quite the reaction, but I would remember it, okay? Because he was so clear about, this is one time when you really have to just, that's it. You put no attention to it whatsoever. The seriousness of it, okay? Anyway, so that's what I take away from it. And I personally like it when and every once in a while he'll say something like, you foolish person, it just says, look, come on, get a grip. Anyway, I particularly like it when it's when every once in a while when there's just this, okay, because it's sort of like a fish or something in your face going, okay, let's pay attention to this even more.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you, Ayya. I think a good technique that the Buddha gives that I use, one technique is as soon as you notice a thought arise like that, you immediately think to yourself, this thought is not good for myself. This thought is not good for any others. This thought is not good for the both of us. And there's something about reciting that 3 thing. It kind of opens up a space, so the thought becomes more of an object and not a self-identified state. It gives it time to kind of do that, and then I find that it dissipates immediately just by that. Another technique is what Buddha recited when he was thinking about when he became a bodhisattva and he was thinking about leaving home, and he said, why should I, who are subject to old age, disease, and death, also seek after that which is also subject to old age, disease, and death? So I find that's helpful with sensual thoughts as well. Both work with sensual thoughts, but I find that that also, because it creates that space, and then your mind is looking at it in a more realistic, way according to the Dharma. anyways, that's all I wanted to say about that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. So we can see that some very general instruction, if you had a student who was gifted, had already developed a lot of perfections, that maybe like the well-trained thoroughbred, you could just give them one general instruction and immediately they're able to pick it up. But then other students may not be able to pick it up on the general instruction. So out of compassion, the Buddha gives these more specific suggestions. And then just by turning our mind toward remembering these specific teachings, then we can find our way out of these states. Because to notice states of mind, that's a subtlety. It's very difficult to even see the mind, even to recognize that certain thoughts have arisen. But we have the opportunity to train ourselves so that we can notice thoughts arising. And then if we've learned some of the wonderful phrases of the key teachings, as Richard was mentioning, and using those to make the mind just have a pause, have enough space to be able to see what's happening before being further swept away. I'll call on Susan.
Thank you, Ayya. I had something happen with this topic recently. I took my daughter to help her on a program she's going to go to, and so we went across the country together. And we have had quite a few clashes in the past in the car, and she's in her mid-20s. And so this is, some of our clashes are kind of predictable. And I didn't really prepare for that. And I've been practicing, and I think what you said about we can kind of ignore some of these deeper grooves. I think this is what was happening, where I was just optimistic, thinking ahead, and knew that this was going to be good. And I was kind of ignoring the reality of this problems. We were clashing, and it was like 7 days, and it was building every day in me. And she would yell at me and in the car, and I could blow that off and maybe but it was affecting me, and I was practicing a lot just to deal with the whole thing. It was a lot of stimulation and where we went, and I was just practicing a lot of contentment and things anyway. But I was practicing so much, I was ignoring my feelings or how I was being affected by this stuff. And it was really building up a lot of negatives in me. And anyway, I think I'm just going to digress. I think somebody shared this Puritan, I forgot this Puritan system I grew up in. I think a lot of us probably have. It's like to sacrifice yourself and just push ahead to accomplish whatever you want to do. And I did that a lot of my life. I don't see myself doing that so much, but in a way I did that on this trip. I just thought, I'm going to sacrifice myself and shut up and get over here, and I'm just going to go forward. This is what I need to do because it's the right thing to do. And there was a lot of good intentions, but there was this other kind of ignoring the situation of the impact on me. And I only had so much I could tolerate after about 6 days, 7 days. I just had a point where I just stay away from me, everybody. Just get away. And I just had reached my max. And I see back how much to learn about, a lot to learn for myself on this. And I think I don't do media on news and stuff, but I think I like what you were sharing, Ayya, Brahmavara about how to live in this world and not just isolate from it. And I really like that. I really want to try to find a way to anyway practice more in it. And I know there's a lot of tools to do that. So I actually was revisiting Bhante Guratana's book, and there's Beyond Mindfulness, and he talks a lot about and I'll wrap it up, the just I think too, having the compassion for to see the world is samsara, and we're all trapped in it, and beings are trapped in it, and we're all, and it most don't have a choice unless you learn. Here we learn we do have a choice, but most people have no idea there's any choice. And the suffering, this tremendous suffering, the more I can see that, I can have compassion, and it needs a lot of compassion and forgiveness and metta for all this. And I need a lot more of that in order to face it and to be honest with myself about how it's affecting me. And boundaries, that's what I wanted to say. I think boundaries of saying, yeah, no, there's the 5 precepts. I say no to these, and I say yes to the factors of awakening, the things that are beneficial. So there is this boundary. I need boundaries, and to have really good boundaries, I think, is part of, and these 4 factors are also part of boundaries. Maybe that's how I could look at them. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that you've opened up an entirely different class that we will be giving very soon, related to social and communal harmony and the factors of right speech. So when in different kinds of circumstances, in some cases, no speech is certainly better than communicating in a way which is affected by greed or anger or delusion. But skillful speech is better than no speech. And this is it's a whole other program. I think I can't really go on at this time, but I think we will be circling back to that. But certainly knowing, like, the reaction of being stressful or sad or painful in some way because of what's coming in, and very clearly acknowledging those feelings, those emotions, and the unpleasantness of those states is very helpful and useful to do. Even if we find that something in us has come up which is actually unskillful, like a resentment or a grudge or a fixed dislike or something like that, then you've got to acknowledge it. You touch this negative state with mindfulness, the way that a mother can hold a screaming baby and help the baby to calm down. And so the same way, like you help yourself to calm down when those states are aroused, and then hopefully it is sometimes possible to express that with one's speech and actions in a way which is helpful. That may be another class. I think I want to go on and take the third one of these factors. And what mendicants is the effort to develop? It's when a mendicant develops the awakening factors: mindfulness, investigation of principles, energy, rapture, tranquility, immersion, that's a samadhi, and equanimity. These 7 factors which rely on seclusion, fading away, and cessation, and ripen as letting go. This is called the effort to develop. So, again, the Buddha in this case has given a very specific set of themes that can be focused for this type of bhavana of developing. There are many different ways, and again, you could spend a whole month or even a year, or more than a year, fully mastering and becoming a skillfully adept person with who's able to deal very easily with these factors, and to be able to recognize any one of these factors when it arises, to be able to see how in some ways they're balancing out between those which are more active and those which are more tranquil, and being able to see how they're onward leading, so that, for example, if we need energy and energy is not present, it could be that if you drop back one step and go to this Dhammavicaya, this investigation of the Dhamma, that can be a way to set the condition for energy to come up. Or if you want that piti, that blissful feeling to come up, and it's not happening for you, then it may be like, drop back down as far back as you need to. Like it may be you need to first be mindful of what is our state right now, then investigate, then see that we take an interest, and then how these factors are leading on. These are very much in the context of meditation, but they are also very much in the context of our overall progress along the path of liberation. It's said that these 7 mature and lead to freedom, peace and freedom, to freedom and liberation. So then, I should say to insight and liberation. So the third factor, the factor of development, is related to particularly directing attention towards seeing of the positive factors that are really pertinent to our growth in the path of practice, that are definitely pertinent to our development of samadhi or meditation, seeing how we stand with respect to these factors, and just simply by giving attention to these factors, we're then supporting the growth and development of these factors. Even if some or any of these factors are not present in us, just remembering that these are factors that are advised and recommended by the Buddha is letting us manifest the factors simply by recalling them and directing awareness in that way. I'm going to call in Brahmavara first and then flow.
Thank you, Ayya. Yes, this is really encouraging us, right, to notice progress on the path. And it's really valuable to be mindful of development. And because, as you say, Ayya, Sobhana, that means that we're going to pay attention to these factors, means they're going to be developing further, but also to see how progress happens on the path, because this is so encouraging for us. So to see how these qualities are developing. Coming back to the example I shared about, news, taking in painful information, traumatic, upsetting information, we can notice how when we have that firmness of effort to deal with the reactivity as it arises, and to allow ourselves to process whatever it is we're taking in, and to watch how much we take in, as we've learned, to have restraint around that, then we can notice how, as we work with any kind of hindrances, that we start to develop equanimity. We start to have a sort of wider view and a sense of seeing, understanding the bigger picture. And to develop wisdom is to learn from our experience, is to have experience in the first place. So it's like noticing this process of, and it's really mirrored in these four right efforts, the process of, first of all, keeping free from defilements as much as we can when defilements arise, how to work with them, and then to see, when we do this, this is the result. We develop more mindfulness. There's this energy that keeps growing, and these peaceful and blissful states can arise. And then really the end point of all of this, the highest and the most sublime of these enlightenment factors, is the equanimity that comes through this whole process, where we are really unshakable. Things arise, worldly winds blow around, and we can maintain a steadiness of heart, an evenness of heart, and watch these factors flowering and developing. So it's really encouraging, really beautiful. I love the balance with these four right efforts. There's in a way, the good news and the bad news, and there is, in every experience we're having, whether it's difficult or easeful, there is an opportunity to bring up energy, bring up effort.
I'll call on flow.
This feels like a little bit of an aside, but the translated line investigation of principles, I've never seen it translated that way, and it makes me feel like I don't really know what it's pointing at. If you could help illuminate that.
Yes, that's a really good point. In the Pali, it's Dhamma Vichaya, it's the investigation of Dhammas. And Dhamma has many different meanings. It could be just investigation of things. One way of looking at it is investigating the teachings of the Buddha. So the Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent, all conditioned things are unsatisfactory, all dhammas are without self. And so part of Dhamma Vichaya could be taken to mean, you just wonder, well, this is what I read in the book that the Buddha said this, but is it true or not? And so then I can test in my own experience whatever I'm able to look at. Well, is it permanent or impermanent? And really do my own journey of discovery to find out whether or not the Buddha's teachings are true. And then if you find out that it's true, then you will feel a lot of happiness. You say, wow, the Buddha was right. This path works. I'm so happy now. I really want to practice more harder. So that is one way of looking at it. This is the way that it was explained to me by Mataji, Gunaratana, my teacher. Another way of looking at it is the factors of our experience, like how the mind operates. So all the phenomena that can be experienced in the mind, all those phenomena are dhammas. So just looking within, like looking at your own psychology, or like how the mind works, that's another aspect of Dhammavicaya. But I think the Bhante Sujata, who translated as Investigation of Principles, he's suggesting to take the teachings of the Buddha, investigate for yourself, and find out whether or not it's true.
Great. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Right. Okay, I think we can have time to look at the fourth right effort. And what mendicants is the effort to preserve? It's when a mendicant preserves a meditation subject that's a fine foundation of immersion. By immersion, he means samadhi. Samadhi is, sama samadhi is very often, most often described in the suttas in terms of the four jhanas. So it's a state where the hindrances have been abandoned, the mind is very well stabilized, where there's a unification of the mind, where it's possible within meditation to direct the mind towards a theme of meditation, and to have the mind remain within that theme without distraction. Where one can go progressively, because of the stillness of the mind, being able to notice ever more and more subtle aspects of how the mind is working. And in which one can experience an inner happiness which is not dependent on anything external. So, and that inner happiness, that bliss, which has nothing to do with sensuality or sense pleasures, but instead is the inherent brightness of the mind itself. But here, it gives this is an example. It's the first example in the Satipatthana of an object of meditation that one would preserve. It's when a mendicant preserves a meditation subject that's a fine foundation of immersion. The perception of a skeleton, a worm-infested corpse, a livid corpse, a split open corpse, or a bloated corpse. This is called the effort to preserve. These are the four efforts. Restraint and giving up, development, preservation. These are the four efforts taught by the kinsman of the sun. Any mendicant who keenly applies these may attain the end of suffering. So we know that in the context of the Eightfold Noble Path, that the very next limb of the Eightfold Noble Path that comes up after the four padhanas is samasati, or right mindfulness. And the first aspect of right mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. And within the mindfulness of the body, comes the charnel ground meditations, this contemplation of the corpse. This, in a way, is a very shocking and challenging kind of a teaching, because we talked about this last Tuesday. For anybody who was with us last Tuesday, we were talking about overcoming fear by being able to progressively, in a systematic way, expose oneself to the thing which one is the most frightened of, in order to methodically desensitize the mind to the reaction of fear, and to be able to just simply be present for that reality without being shaken up or being too upset or too distracted. And so right at the very beginning of the Satipatthana, of the description of right mindfulness, it gives this shocking objective meditation saying you've got to take the most frightening thing of all, the most reactive thing of all, and you've got to develop that full equanimity that was the culmination of the 7 factors of awakening. So you develop those 7 factors until you're fully equanimous. You've really developed it. And then you will be able to look at the most difficult subject and the mind will remain steady. Now, we know that when people are trying to gain samadhi that don't have it already, they may be taught to take an object which is inherently pleasant, like the development of loving kindness as an object, and then that pleasant feeling is kind of helping you to stick with it. Or it could be that you're taking kind of an object that's rather neutral, like the breath is neutral, more or less of a neutral object that most people are, unless you have an illness, you wouldn't be feeling that greedy about breathing, or you wouldn't feeling that hateful or aversive about breathing. Breathing is just breathing, so the breathing doesn't disturb the mind one way or another. And so you want, with this preservation, you've learned how to make the mind be steady, perhaps by taking an easier subject, but then even when confronting the most difficult subject, this teaching is telling us that we have to be able to be steady, keep the mind awake, aware, looking, even with the scary object of the death of this body. Venerable?
Yeah, thank you, Ayya. That's really made sense to me. When I was reading through this sutta before, I thought, why are we having this as the object of samadhi, the corpse? And you've really explained it for me, and it really does tie in with the development of the enlightenment factors, culminating in equanimity. There it is. And it's sort of then very complete, and makes me think also of the Buddha's teachings on, the simile of the saw, to have, even when we ourselves are being harmed and hurt in the most excruciating ways, we're not fully practicing the Buddha's teachings if we have any reactivity to that. And it's such a high teaching, but ultimately this is the Buddha's pointing the way to liberation through this kind of a simile. And to be able to preserve also this aspect, I find also very helpful to consider, in a broader sense too, any good that we have done, or any ways in which we've been maintaining our sila in a good way, or any attainments that we may appreciate, any insights that we may have had, to be very sure not to fall away from those positive and bright and good states, but rather to appreciate them and to maintain them and preserve them. I also consider this to be part of this aspect of this aspect of right effort to be protecting. You know, the word here in the Pali really means to protect, and so I consider this as well.
And because this is in part a practice which is really about meditation, not just about being out and about in the world, if we meditate on the bloated corpse and so forth, then, like as Flo was mentioning this morning, if we are confronting the cruelty and war and killing that's being perpetuated in the world, when we've already caused the mind to be that steady and that solid, then we're able to also go in the world and to speak, and the mind would be able to be there without disturbance. I'll call on Ananaya.
This is just a minor thing. I have Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation open for today, and he calls this last one striving by protection. I mean, it's the same thing, but the protection is here a bhikkhu protects an arisen excellent object of concentration. The perception of a skeleton, the perception of a worm infested corpse, and et cetera, the same objects. Just a slightly different verbiage. I tend to like his more, but that's, subjective.
Yes. This anurakkhana, I've always thought of it as protection. So we are protecting the practice. We protect the Dhamma, and we know that if we protect the Dhamma will protect us. So by protecting the Dhamma, we are protecting our own heart. Even if we were so fortunate as to have some kind of like a noble realization, if we have stream entry or greater than stream entry, then we would see that any kind of hatred or any kind of aversion that could come up, and even someone with noble attainments can have aversion could arise for them. But then they would immediately say, oh, danger, danger. The aversion is so dangerous. This could really, extend the time in samsara. So then, if we then give the greatest priority to not allowing ourselves to commit any negative karma, even by way of a negative thought.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier, actually, this thing with like irritation or whatever. It is by way of, if it comes up, or as it would come up, was like, that's not helpful. It's not helpful to me. And if it was directed in any way, it's certainly not helpful to whomever I was going to direct it at, or
Right.
wanted to direct it at. Yeah, that's the only way really, I have to say for me, that's a very helpful way to deal with it, is to just have it, catch it right away, and then acknowledge its harmfulness and how that's absolutely not where we want to go.
Right.
So, yeah.
The reason I mentioned it, as I did, about not allowing a negative karma of an unwholesome thought, even in the case of a stream entry, is in terms of the story, which I don't think is apocryphal, about the Tibetan monk who had been imprisoned and treated harshly for many years. And then when he came out, some people were amazed at how quickly, as soon as he recovered his physical health, he was a very normal, good monk without showing any post-traumatic stress reactions. And they wanted to know how he protected himself during that time. And he said that his entire practice was to prevent hatred. He knew how much danger was in hatred. So his entire effort for all of those years in prison, being subjected to harsh treatment, was to not allow hatred in his own heart. And because of that effort, he both protected whatever he had attained and realized through his previous training, and also protected his health and protected his mind. I'll call on Richard.
Thank you, Ayya. So the Buddha said one time, he said, if there was no old age, disease, and death, then a Tathagata would never arise in the world. So there could still be birth, but as long as after that everything's fine, there's no motivation. In other words, there isn't sufficient suffering, right, to have a motivation for a Tathagata to arise in the world. So when I see this last section, what I think is that this protection is that, okay, maybe you achieve these foundations of enlightenment factors all the way up to high levels of samadhi, the various blisses and the jhanas and the formless bliss and everything. And you might forget the goal is to, end birth and death, right? To open, go through the door of the deathless, right? So you may get just caught up in these things. So it's good to sort of remind yourself, what the goal really is, okay? And not get fixated or stuck, in some place and maybe temporarily forget it. Also, I think it's very interesting, this example here. It doesn't have everything from, when Buddha describes this in the Satipatthana Sutta, it doesn't have the end, which is dust, when the bones just turn to dust. Because what is dust? Oh, just some dust, right? And it doesn't have just the dead body, right? When a newly dead body, because some people see a new dead body and they think, oh, it looks so peaceful, like they're just sleeping, right? He basically but he mentions the ones that are going to repulse you. You know what I mean? He doesn't have everything about a corpse. I'm sorry, about the skeleton in there, but skeleton includes all the various phases of the skeleton, right? So when everything else is, these are the things that are going to repulse you about this idea of going through, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. Anyways, that's just my feeling on it. The other thing is that this sutta overall, this is dealing with path factors 6, 7, and 8. So it starts out bhikkhus. So Buddha says that right livelihood. He says the highest form of right livelihood is to be a monastic, one of few wants. He puts it that way. To be a monastic, one of few wants who makes their livelihood by simple begging, so they don't have to spend a lot of time in their life. Most people have to work all day and everything, right, to make their money, to maintain their house, to get food, clothing, everything else, right? So bhikkhu cuts a lot of that time way down by just living a simple life. And so when he starts out bhikkhus, he's saying, okay, you guys are already, to a certain extent, whether they've attained or not yet to the beginning, you're living that lifestyle, that right livelihood lifestyle. And then so the first section deals with wholesome or skillful, and so Buddha describes right effort is wholesome, skillful, means of divining out unwholesome, unskillful from wholesome and skillful, right? And then the next section, obliterating the unwholesome thoughts of ill will. Again, he uses that term again, right? Get rid of that unwholesomeness. And then finally, in the third section, he says, the first factor of enlightenment is mindfulness, right? So that's the seventh factor, and then it ends right with samadhi, the eighth factor, and then in the next section he tells you how to maintain that. So basically, this is kind of a quick synopsis of how to apply yourself, in a certain way to perfecting, 6, 7, and 8 path factors. Again, that's just my opinion, but that's what I see when I read it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. I love your suggestion about remembering the grossest parts of the corpse meditation, of the charnel ground meditation, in order to avoid being swept up in the bliss in the blissful side of being an advanced practitioner of meditation. And it's certainly true that we know that in at least one place in the suttas that right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi are the three factors that are together called bhavana, or mental cultivation, or you could say those three factors are particularly related to meditation. So this guideline is certainly giving a lot of wonderful guidance and training about what is about mindfulness, and also very relevant and pertinent information about samadhi and how to develop that. So I appreciate everybody who has listened patiently, and I hope that we'll have time to both live our lives in a way that embodies this right effort, and more time to put more energy into formal meditation, because formal meditation is a wonderful addition to life, and it's the way to make a faster progress. So now I will close by giving respect to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Subhatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you, everybody, for your good practice and your patient listening today.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you, Ayya. Thank you, both Ayyas.
Thank you.